The following broadcast is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
What's going on, sports people? What's happening? It's your boy E Buck the Nighthawk in the building. And once again, it is time for us to talk sports as we do. And it looks like we have lost our buddy Hugh for a minute. We've been having some technical difficulties due to this impressive storm that we have right now. When I tell you it's coming down in buckets right now, that's pretty much what it's looking like. It's looking more like we in Buffalo than we be, but nonetheless, we're going to keep it going. Technical difficulties and all, and hopefully, my friends, we will get a good show in. So, of course, like I said, we will wait for you for a minute, but in the meantime, hope if you are here in the Detroit area, you are being very cautious on the roads, and know that if you don't need to go out tonight, you probably shouldn't. It's a couple actually very good events going on downtown. I feel real bad for the people that have come to entertain us this evening because those crowds may not be what they should be due to this weather, but hopefully everything turns out good for all parties involved. In the meanwhile, I say you bundle on up, get nice and cozy, and go ahead and do what we need to do to get things done. So that being said, we're gonna get the show started. Like I said, hopefully my good buddy Hugh Lee, the sports guru, will pop back in here at some point. But in the meanwhile, we will go on his list of topics that he wants us to discuss this evening and get that ball rolling. So let me pull that up right here and let's get it started, shall we? This is Game Time Audible. I am one of your hosts, E Buck. Like I said, we're having technical difficulties on Hugh's end, so hopefully he will pop in at some point. If not, we will just have to keep this ball rolling the best way we can here for you guys. Uh, One of the things he wanted to talk about today is what's going on in the NFL. You know, the NFL Combine have been this week, and of course, you get the usual things going on in terms of people that's testing a little better than expected, and some people testing out as well. Of course, the big story coming out the Combine is the sad situation with one Mr. Walker in regards to what's going on in his legal situation. Apparently, he was involved in some type of street racing crash that led somebody to be injured and murdered. Uh, Sad situation. To what degree his involvement is, we still have yet to truly determine. But all in all, hopefully that will be worked out in court, and that young man will still be able to have some type of NFL career. Though if he is basically responsible to the greater degree for whatever happened, then of course he should obviously be tried and convicted and what have you. So hopefully, like I said, we will work all that out in the wash and everything comes out okay. Usually, you know, in these situations where you have people who are entering the draft, they of course turn over every stone to determine this person's situations and worth and understanding so that in the event that there is a situation that no one knows about that becomes known, you are not wasting millions of dollars on this individual. And it looks like we got Hugh back here in the building. Let's see what's going on. Hugh, can you hear us?
Yeah, my internet been acting up, man.
Yeah, we let everybody know what's going on. So, like I said, we just go ride it out, man. Hopefully, we'll get the show in, and you will be with us for most, if not all of it, and everything works out good. So, That being said, we just got through talking about the situation with the young man from Georgia and his situation with court and how that may have affected his draft stock. You have any comments on that there? Hugh? Hugh, can you hear us?
I didn't really understand. No, because you
Oh,
froze up for like a couple seconds.
okay. We're talking about the situation with Mr. Walker, the guy from Georgia, and his situation with the court right now in regards to the sports, not the sports racing, but the street racing and his involvement in it. Basically, do you have any comments in regards to him and that situation?
I'm actually surprised did you want to talk about that, E, because you usually don't like talking about stuff like that as far as when a lot of athletes get in trouble over doing things of that nature. But him doing that, it really was something that can really mess up his career right now. Unfortunately, it's at the wrong time of year too for that to happen.
Well, I bring it up because unfortunately, it not just affects his ability to be highly ranked in the draft. It may actually affect his ability to be drafted at all, and that is usually a situation that we find ourselves in every other year in these drafts. As they get to exploring people's backgrounds and they find out things about them to basically undermine and perhaps even cheapen the price for certain people. I feel like it is a ongoing thing, and like I said, unfortunately, these young men are finding themselves in these situations. But in the same token, people are taking advantage of it. It is the old boy network using their resources to basically, you know, put the price value down.
This happens most every year when you get a top 10 to 20 prospect to where something that happened and then they figure it out and find out what's going on. And this would happen to them exactly around the time, the day before the combine or of the combine, and basically scare teams off. But see, that's been something that's been going on a while lately over there in Georgia. There's a lot of reckless stuff that's going on over there because I feel like Stetson Bennett, he's been doing crazy stuff too, man. I don't think that it was as they pushed it, as to the extremity as they're doing now with the brother. I'm just gonna be honest with you, but he was drunk and he got arrested for public intoxication, and then they didn't like the way he was because he was drunk and stumbling all over the place in the Georgia, parade when they won. But I don't know, man. I'm not trying to throw or say Georgia's a bad school, but it seems like most of the stuff that's been going on like that has been from that school, and not trying to be biased or anything. But I don't know, man. It's sad because when the athletes get to this level, that's definitely gonna hurt him. I don't think that he will pass day one with his talent, but it's definitely going to take away from his money because people looked at him at one point as the number one draft pick if the Bears would have stayed put. But they're
Which,
not looking for, any grown players.
which that basically brings us to our next topic for discussion. There has been much talk, particularly in the last few days, about Chicago Bears who do have the number one pick in this year's draft, basically trading that pick to get other picks. And I know for me personally, I feel like it's definitely in the Bears' interest to do just that because you look at that team overall and outside of Justin Fields, who I definitely feel will make some strides up in this offseason, particularly if they get him the proper training from folks. Most of the rest of that squad is definitely people or peoples that can be upgraded. So I figure as many picks you could do to upgrade, and you the Bears, you should do that. Now, of course, the great question is if they do trade the pick, who do they trade it to? And basically, I think it boils down to who trying to give up the most stuff. Not necessarily the biggest stuff, but the most stuff. Like, for example, we know Philadelphia has
And,
two
and
first round picks, but why would they trade up for the number one pick? they pretty much got everything that you need for a football team right now. They may need to make a couple slight tweaks, but for the most part, I think Philly in a good position. But then, of course, you got teams like the Raiders who basically told their quarterback bye-bye. But in the same token, you got them right where you want them if you're the Bears. I'm basically trying to get them to cough up as much as they possibly can. What's your thoughts on it, Hugh?
Most of the quarterback needy teams are going to be trying to go for the number one spot. And I think the team right now who needs to make those strides is like the Las Vegas Raiders. I heard the Texans are involved. I know the Colts are involved. And it's going to be
Absolutely.
teams that's out there like I wouldn't even be surprised being because they haven't had luck at getting some of the guys.
Yeah, I said if you're the Colts, you definitely need to go out your way to get that pick because when you look at what they've been doing for quarterback the last few years, clearly the let's get an older quarterback and see what we could do is not working for them. They definitely need to go young and they definitely need to do what they can do to get young in this case because he would appear to be the number one pick if he is
and there's
the quarterback.
The Panthers are interested as well because they don't really have no true quarterback over there with starting caliber, and that's a really good young team. When you get rid of Christian McCaffrey and you get rid of some of the other pieces to that team, especially your best weapon on the team, and you still competed in a very poor division where you still possibly could have went to the playoffs too. That shows you something. And unfortunately, Steve Wilkes is not there anymore, and they chose a coach who hasn't really been proven since he became the head coach, and that's Frank Reich. And it's just sad because when you look at it, it's like more or less the coaches of color seem like they're on a really tight leash because there ain't no way they shouldn't have said after the job he did that they shouldn't have gave him a shot to become their head coach, except intern and all that other crap, the interim head coach. He should have been a head coach over there, but to just pick a coach without even really having consider him, man, that was a slap in the face. And the coach was even a guy who I say who was improving. Maybe I'm wrong because when they did Doug Peterson, it was a little different because Doug won the Super Bowl and they just had a rough year with injuries, and then they just canned him and he went over to Jacksonville and proved his worth. But Frank Reich haven't really proved much for me. Maybe it was because of the quarterbacks they was bringing in as veteran type quarterbacks, but I don't know. But yeah, man, I don't really want to get deep off into it, but yeah, I think the Panthers should definitely put 2 cents in too and try to get opportunity to get at the quarterback position because they got a few pieces they need. I'm just glad that what we said last year that it didn't come true. Where we said, well, our team wasn't good enough to even try to consider getting the number 2 pick, and we should have stepped down and got more draft picks. That's what most of the conversation was about. But for them to do what they did with that draft and to have some younger guys, not even the second round, but the third, fourth, and deeper rounds to step up and plug and play as well as they did, that was a shocker. But you won't get that all the time. But I just feel like this year is hit or miss with some of these players, and I just believe the talent is going to be there. It's a real deep defensive back draft too this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing are we going to draft another defensive back? Us meaning the Detroit Lions, because no disrespect to Akuda, but I feel like that was a 3rd round pick that Matt Patricia should have just kept, and I don't think that was a good idea as of now because I thought that he'd be a good pick, but that high at a cornerback, you have to really be special, and I don't think he's the guy.
I mean, all being said, am I for keeping Akuda at this point? I am, but basically not for whatever he would consider to be number 3 pick money. I think he is a more than serviceable defensive back at this point. Not quite as bad as I thought he was going to be, but in the same token, he is definitely not upper echelon. as you would think somebody who's drafted number 3 is.
He probably safety. That might save his career.
That's a possibility as well. That usually is what happens in those situations. But that being said, let's just say Chicago decides to keep the number 1 pick. If that's the case, Hugh, who do you see them picking at number 1?
It was going to be a toss-off at first between Will Anderson and the young man you was just talking about from Atlanta, but now that since he messed up and Smith did what he did, I'm going to definitely go with it. If they keep that number 1 pick, it's going to be Will Anderson.
I think whether he messed up or not, Will Anderson was definitely the number 1 pick if it's the Bears' pick to make, because you got to remember, we talking Chicago Bears. Basically, they are the team probably more than any other team in the NFL known for its linebacker play. And of course, you think about some of the great linebackers of the Bears past, like the great Big Butkus. Of course, you got to talk about Mike Singletary from the great years of the Monsters of the Midway. And then, of course, you got Urlacher, who was a great back for them. And, of course, in recent times, Khalil Mack, until they unfortunately traded him. I still don't understand what happened there. But nonetheless, I think he could be the next great one for them.
Because I still believe with his talent, Jalen Carter going to be at least in a conversation of being in 20s or like getting closer to the later round of round 1. I don't think he'll make it to the second round, but that hurt people, man. I remember that happened to a gentleman before who actually went to the Patriots. He could have been the first round talent, and he came out of Nebraska with Sue. And he was a New England Patriot. And the only reason the Patriots was able to get him so low, which he made it to the 7th round, damn near not being drafted, was because of his issues, the fighting and the issues he had at the school.
I think about
man, that's starting to become more of a problem.
I think about Larry Tunsil from a couple years ago and the situation that went on with him that led him to fall in the draft.
Yeah.
So there's something to keep an eye on.
Time of year, man, you got. I did know this, what surprised me. We talked about this just recently because it was something that they should have been brought up. Even we talked about this before. This should have happened 6-7 years ago. If teams ask inappropriate questions to the NFL prospects now, not only will they get fined, but they can also lose draft picks for doing that. Meaning, we talked about that before when they were talking to Dez Bryant and they didn't have to go to the extremity that they did, but they basically asked him, his mother a crackhead. You know, if you ask something like that, because they're going to basically be really paying attention to these interviews. And if one of the guys complained or if they had an issue or felt uncomfortable with some of the things that's been said and what was going on in the interview, you could lose picks and you could get fined. So I feel that's still not enough. And I think those people should lose their jobs.
I mean, bottom line is it's like if you go on a job interview and they ask you an inappropriate question like that. Like if basically they ask you, are you a crackhead? You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's an inappropriate discussion to have at a job interview. So I say you look at it the same way. Do not ask these young men anything you would not ask on a typical job interview. Plain and simple. And, you know, in regards to most of those complaints in the past, it just so happened that many of those people look like us. And that basically makes you question, like I said, like it or not, NFL does have a racism problem in 2023. Sometimes it's discussed out in the open, particularly when we talk about the Rooney Rule and what's going on in there. But other times it's not so open, and then it just kind of comes out. Because, you know, part of why I oftentimes don't like to talk about the issues that some of the athletes have is because it seems like they definitely emphasize when the athlete is a person of color. whatever situation that he's gotten himself into. And it doesn't seem to play out nearly as deeply for people of non-color. That's just my personal thought on that.
But it's always going to be treated different when you're a person of color in the NFL, because of the fact is a lot of the guys in the NFL are of color. So I feel like that's why they act that way towards the colored people in the NFL. But it's a shame, a lot of times when white players do things like a couple years ago when the Seattle Seahawks gentleman, the white dude beat up his girlfriend, beat her up real bad too. And that never was really showed or discussed on ESPN. They basically didn't go deep into issues with like the Brett Favre situation. I don't care how innocent people say he was, he knew something about it and he was involved, regardless of what people want to say. And that was always swept under the rug while they vocalized with guys like, Deshaun Watson. And, you look at some of the premier players like that who are of color, and that's your story from TMZ all the way to ESPN and then some,
even a situation where you had your boy Aaron Rodgers lie about his vaccination status. Mm-hmm. You don't even feel like that got played out to the degree that it could have.
No, not at all. And he didn't get fined.
And it definitely wasn't played out to the degree that they did for Kyrie Irving in the NBA. So
absolutely, because I understand why he wanted to leave the Nets. At first, people were like, Kyrie's crazy, and people made jokes about him, and they said that dude's not right in the head. But why would you make him go through all of that? And you basically just made him, almost do community service. And you wouldn't do that to Aaron Rodgers, man. It was just swept under the rug like nothing ever happened. But yeah, man, that's why I was like, I didn't blame him from leaving, because I feel like when people were saying, "Oh man, he a crybaby," I said, "Man, it is what it is." He just stayed long enough to get out of that issue. But
right. Well, I don't know if we had this on the list or not, but let me do a quick audible, Hugh. What is your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers at this point? Do you think he's going back to the Packers, or you think he's going to have them move him on?
I think he should move on. It really don't make no sense to me, because one good thing I did hear that I liked, that they said that Jordan Love's ready. They feel like he's ready to take over that team and become the guy, because it's like Rodgers flirt with, I might not be back, or I, don't know if they'll, pick me back up, because of my contract and, all this other stuff, trying to play games to try to get more money in for them to cater to him. And Charles Barkley said it best. He's that pretty girl who always needs to be told they're pretty, or they'll be insecure. I really hope that they say, man, let's move on with the young guy and see what he have to offer, because it's starting to be like Brett Favre all over again with Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, at this point, I too would move on from Aaron Rodgers if I was Green Bay. I definitely think that Aaron Rodgers will definitely decide to come on back to Green Bay. There's about 50 million reasons why he will do so. So, all that being said, if I'm the Packers, I move on from him. I trade him. I eat whatever money I need to eat to make it happen. And then I would go and draft, one of the second tier quarterbacks. And I basically make it an open competition between Jordan Love and said individual and go from there. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty sure they're looking at it from the standpoint of we probably not going to win the division next year. We might be in the secondary. I mean, I definitely say it's basically going to be between the Lions and the Vikings who wins the NFC North next year. But everything been everything. I think it's time for the Packers to move on. I think it's time for Aaron Rodgers to move on. I still feel like he have enough games to where he shouldn't retire. But one of these other quarterback hungry teams, have at it.
I thought Oakland would be perfect for him, man. How Devontae Adams was flirting with him the other day. They asked, what's so special about, coming here to Las Vegas? And he like, because I'm here. No questions asked. So, yeah, but it's definitely in due time, we'll see what's going on with that whole situation, which is fiasco. And I'm getting tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers right now.
Right.
Um,
Sure that he is. It would not surprise me if he end up with the Jets. I mean, New York seemed like, the perfect media market for him to go to because I honestly feel like once he leaves football, he will definitely get into the media at some point. Maybe not necessarily as one of the talking heads, but perhaps with his own podcast or something to that effect.
Yeah, because I think he's a little too sensitive, and I remember Rondé Barber was talking about that. He not sure if he want him to come to New York because how sensitive he's act already in Green Bay, and he said if you got that type of reaction in Green Bay, which is not really a huge market, but to come to New York and man, you gotta have tough skin being in those places like New York. But hey, that's already a pretty good team, man. And they showed you all they really need is a quarterback to where they'll go in the playoffs and maybe even further. So yeah, they definitely built a really good team off the draft. And they got enough young talent and enough talent in general to actually be a relevant contender for him. So yeah, I think that'll be not that bad of a pickup myself. Man, they've been releasing a lot of players. We already knew about Robert Woods and Taylor Lewan, but man, they didn't release Bobby Wagner, which I kind of figured he was going to be a cap casualty. Carson Wentz, I don't know what the heck he gonna do, but I guarantee you, somebody gonna get this dude another chance. He almost on his way to the XFL, but trust me, he's still gonna get an opportunity from the team.
I think I agree with you, but don't agree with you. I think he will get another chance. I don't think it's going to be in the NFL at this point. I think he will end up on XFL squad or USFL squad, do just enough to say, okay, yeah, we're going to give him one more chance, and then find himself back in the NFL. That's what I think. I mean, basically, you look at his physical being, I mean, 6'4.5", 6'5", still got a pretty good arm. His scramblability ain't quite what it once was, but just those two things and the fact that he does have some NFL experience definitely leads me to believe that at some point somebody will give him one last opportunity to at least be the backup on the squad and go from there.
And that's what I think. I don't think that he'll go nowhere and he'll start right now. I think that he'll definitely be in a situation right now where if he do, he will definitely go somewhere where he'll be a backup, where he definitely won't start. And it'll be a smart move for some teams who got injury prone quarterbacks who, like, if they get hurt, they'll be right there, and they look at it like he's a veteran presence and that might be able to help that team. I don't know how well it'll help a team because I don't really think he's good as they thought he was going to be. But at the same time, I think that he could be one of those guys like waiting in a backup role to help out with the starter role. Like back in the day when we used to have a pretty good quarterback behind Matthew Stafford and Sean Hill, who was
Absolutely.
really good. Mm-hmm.
And like I said, hopefully we get some type of quality backup like that if we're not going to draft one in this upcoming draft, the Lions that is. But yeah, what's next, Hugh?
Yeah, man. I know you're gonna like this one. NFL now is going to look more into, except for, say, like for instance, if I'd be like, well, yeah, man, I want to get a red flag and y'all to review a play. It's gonna automatically be now reviewed for roughing the passer now for the NFL, and I think that should have been happened, man. That definitely should have been reviewable because four of them to me this year was suspect. A lot of them was possibly necessary, regardless if you didn't hit them that hard. If you still went for the head area, then yeah, they're going to find you. But not if you just graze a person or generally touch the helmet. If you kind of come in using force and can't stop, but like say for instance, a lot of times when that happened, people push their, teammates into the quarterback, and then it'll be like a rough of the passer. But they're going to do it like college now. How in college, had a helmet to helmet, and they'll look at it and see if it was egregious or see if it was just like, a bang bang play, which I think it'll be good for the NFL. And I'm starting to see that them taking more steps and doing some of the things in the college level now, which would be a smart thing for them to do because it was a few games this year I felt like was lost because roughing the passers. And I just feel like that definitely should have been reviewed because by that being non-reviewable, guys that get tackled and they'll politely lay them on the ground. Like in one instance, Tom Brady, when he got tackled in the Atlanta Falcons game, when the guy tackled him and rolled over Brady, and he didn't use no like force or he wasn't real physical with him. He just rolled Brady over. But then they looked at it and they was like, oh man, that was roughing the passer, because you took him to the ground, which if he didn't, he would have probably been able to still get the throw off. And that caused Atlanta, to me, that game. And if they would have won that game, there's a possibility that they would have been in the playoffs versus the Buccaneers. So just a few things like that should definitely be put into consideration. And I'm glad that they're going to do that because a lot of times when they were calling these roughing the passer calls, it wasn't even nothing really violent to it. It was just them just doing their job, what you're getting paid for.
I think when all is said and done, you got to look at what the USFL and the XFL are doing in terms of experimenting with new rules and new regulations. And I think just to keep pace and be the main focus, the NFL will start to adapt a lot of the things that they see in those two leagues in order to make the product a little better. And then, of course, they definitely are going to take more of an emphasis on safety, as we starting to find out that, according to one report that I saw, at least 70% of all NFL players who are being tested for CTE after they pass away are showing that they do have CTE. So that's definitely something I think that will be in the thought processes, moving forward. What can they do to not only make the game more quicker and efficient, but also a lot safer?
Yeah, because it's all about safety, man. Unfortunately, some people don't like the way it calmed down and how the physicality's been lost from the game at some point. But a lot of the guys who played before the dudes now, like in the 80s, 90s, and further up, they didn't get that opportunity that they're getting now. So yeah, we love the game and we like the violence to it, but at the same time, you still got to make it safe enough to where the players are not getting hurt, man. Because I really felt like with Tua this year, it was frightening how I felt like he wasn't really being protected and getting hurt and having all those concussions, and not blaming the player, but his actual team who knowing he had concussion and to put him back there in that type of situation, knowing that this guy wasn't even right. Because that game I was upset because I was like, man, they should beat Green Bay and they were the better team. But when he came back in the game, man, he didn't even look like he was the same. He was throwing the ball to the other team on a regular. And then that's when it came out that he had a concussion. So, yeah, man, I understand in certain instances when you're supposed to do the right thing, but sometimes I just don't really feel like the NFL do that. I feel like they look at it like, hey man, we a juggernaut, man, and this is our market, and we want to put the best people out there to give the people the best entertainment. And sometimes I don't think that they think logical, man. I think they look at it like, well, we want this player to play regardless of the fact, and that can end the player's career too, man. Speaking of RG3, man, which a lot of people don't give that man credit. He was like the first player after Vic. He reminded me so much of Vic. He didn't really have to run as much because he was such a good thrower too. But that dude, man, of what happened with him, man, and just the poor decision on the coaching staff and him getting hurt like he did in Washington, man, he's a prime example of how you're supposed to protect the players.
We got Pride checking into the building. What's going on, Pride? Hopefully you are okay where you at and the power stays on and all that. I know you've been having some power outage issues over time yourself, so hopefully everything is going to work out well for you there. Yeah, I mean, when all is said and done, Hugh, I really just feel like the NFL, for as much money and things it's making, is definitely still some things they need to iron out long term in order for it to be a viable option. I think they really did dodge a bullet that one particular day when a young man got hurt on the field there in Buffalo, and the fact that he is still, up and walking around. What if that turned out a different way? What if he actually like died on the field? That would have been a hard public relations thing for the NFL to contend with. And of course, there always is that possibility that that very well could happen to one of the players, particularly if it's one of the star players, and they got to be ready to contend with all that. I finally got my whole house ready. So, oh, that's what's up. I mean, I would definitely say for anybody who can afford to invest in such a thing, it definitely will be a wise investment, particularly if you live in an area like here where power outages seem to happen quite often. If you can afford to get a whole house generator, by all means, do so.
I want to. Do you have anything else to discuss about the NFL? Because I was about to get over to the NBA because there was a lot of crazy stuff happened before we was actually able to get back on there today.
Absolutely. So, no, I'm pretty much good with NFL for now. What we'll do here is take a quick commercial break. We're just gonna do one. When we come back, we'll switch on over to NBA. So, grab y'all a quick water, a quick snack, and we will be right back after this quick word from one of our folks here in the Nighthawk Network. You probably know who it is, don't you?
Hello, hello, hello. It's another glorious day, my tea sippers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Darling.
We're not asking for your permission. We're not seeking your approval. We're claiming what's ours in the name of our ancestors. We are their answered prayers. This is more than a movement.
Are you ready for the
This
NBA?
is a revolution. Black innocence. What are yours today?
The views and or opinions expressed here on Gametime Audible is that of the host and or guests, and does not necessarily reflect those of the Nighthawk Network or its affiliates. Viewer and listening discretion is advised. Discretion. All right, now we are back. Gametime Audible, me and your boy Hugh. Before we move on, I definitely want to give a shout out to one of our Nighthawk Network affiliate members, one Demetrius Taylor, also known as Big Meech, whose birthday is tomorrow. Happy early birthday, Big Meech. Hopefully you
Happy
are going
birthday,
to have a real good time. Much glad that you turned, I believe, the big 5-3 this year. So happy early birthday to you. We got Pride checking in. He says, look like LBJ is done for the season and no playoffs yet again. Definitely in the realm of possibility at this point, and that would be extremely unfortunate that it is he who cost the Lakers the playoffs and not young Anthony Davis, who is constantly hurt. But I'm sure we'll have that discussion as we talk some NBA now. What you got for us, Hugh?
Man, there's been a lot of crazy games as of late, as far as big scoring games, man.
Crazy good, exactly.
A lot of people been throwing up 40 points in general, man. One of them that I wish we was able to talk about then was the Sacramento Kings game when the two players, De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. De'Aaron Fox had 42 and Malik Monk had like 45 in the double overtime.
Why wouldn't we talk about that game? That was absolutely one of the better games of the season, I felt. It was very high scoring. I mean, it basically was running gun to its finest extent. I mean, before we even get to overtime, both teams were in the 150s. It was crazy.
Yeah, I just felt like most of it was excited to look at, but it was very piss poor defense.
There was no defense in that game. Let's be honest. There was none whatsoever. It like I told you the other day, it reminded me a lot of a UNLV type game, or even I go even back even further old school. When we talk about Hank Gathers, one of those games from back in the day with Loyola Marymount, where basically the plan was to keep shooting until we couldn't shoot no more. That game was very much like that. And keep in mind, they were not the only two people to score 40 points in that game. You also had Kawhi Leonard scoring 44 in that game as well. So, it's definitely a key this year that people are looking to get their offense on. Most of the teams in the NBA are averaging over 100 points a game, which is the most since like the late 80s, early 90s. But then think about it right now, Hugh, the top 5 scorers in the NBA average over 30 points a game, over 31 points a game. And that's like unheard of.
It's been a lot of good scoring with some of the guys. Like we could talk about it yesterday. I think now they might be 2-5, something in that realm. But a lot of people didn't feel like having the two gentlemen play together, who is Kyrie and Luka, would work. And it has been a struggle so far, but last night they lit it up. And unfortunately, Pride listening, it was against his 76ers, man. You had 40 from Kyrie and 42 from Luka. So that was actually another game where you had teammates scoring huge points to actually pull out that game, because at first it looked like I thought the 76ers was going to cruise with that game, and those guys just exploded, man. And seeing that game, I was like, man, I don't know if it will work or not, but at the same time, it was pretty entertaining to watch them play and score like that at will.
Well, basically, Pride saying Mavs suck, no defense and too small. I won't go so far as too small. They do have some decent big men with Powell and Clump, but definitely the defense is very similar to what you see with the Rockets or those sorry Pistons of our Clips suck. Clips definitely are not playing up to standard. We'll get to that in a minute. But playing D and the clause done, not sure why they picked refs. We'll get to the Clippers in a minute. But going back to the Mavs for a minute, I still don't say that per se that experiment has worked just yet. It worked last night most definitely against one of the better teams in the league, but I'm still kind of concerned. I mean, keep in mind, and watching some highlights from that game, surprisingly, it was Luka who was bringing the ball up the majority of the time, and not Kyrie. And basically, Pride always talked about how he felt like the Mavs needed a point guard. Last time I checked, Kyrie is point guard, but he didn't play it like that last night. I actually felt like that was in their better interest to have Luka basically be the point forward and Kyrie come in as the shooting guard. I think that's the best way for them to make that work.
Yeah, I believe they might have a little bit of a playoff run, but with not really having no defense and executing on that end, you have to outscore everybody you can play, man. And for the most part, I don't think they're gonna do that. It's too much over there now in the West, and how they bullied Phoenix. I don't think that's gonna happen no more with KD over there now, man. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how far they go. But I only think that this is not even really something that we should even put a lot of investment into, because Kyrie's not going to be there that long. He's only going to be there probably for a year.
I have to admit, I don't think Kyrie's going to stay either. I definitely see him moving on, and I think we all have a pretty good idea of where he'll probably end up. I would go as far as to say it's probably already a half done deal. We just basically got to ride it out. But just in general, I basically wrote down what the records are and what their position is, and if you want, we can just go through the list and you tell me what you think in regards to the teams currently in the playoffs and those couple that's on the outskirts. You want to do it that way, you?
Okay.
All right. We're gonna start with the West. Right now, the top team in the West is Denver. Do you see them staying the top team, and how far you think they go in the playoffs?
I think they could possibly still keep that top team. But as far as they'll go, I'm gonna say I wouldn't be surprised if they get knocked out again in the semifinals. Like they normally have been, win a round and lose. In the second round. I just don't really see it most times, and that's why when it comes to Luka winning MVPs, the individual award, that's all good and all, but how far can you take your team?
And again, here's the thing: it's something about when they get into the nitty gritty of the playoffs. I don't know if it's at that point Luca start. I mean, not Luca, but Joker starts to get tired. If basically he ain't had enough backup firepower, I go back to that year in the bubble where basically Denver was looking real good because it was not Luca, but it was his teammate that was basically getting off. And basically between him and Mitchell, that probably was one of the better playoff series you will ever see. But when all is said and done, it's like at some point they need to step it up a notch in the playoffs when they get there. And I basically think what you get now out of the Joker is what you're gonna get in the playoffs. There is no next level for him. So unless Murray or perhaps Gordon or somebody along those lines, even Michael Porter Jr. step up to another level or two, I think I have to agree with you, Hugh. They keep that number one seed, but they don't get past the second round. Okay, we got Memphis at number 2 at this point. So is Ja right? Should he not worry about the West at this point?
When he said that at the time, right after all those picks was made, they lost 5 straight. So yeah, he should definitely be worried. That's a target on Memphis back too. After saying that, not only him being, and I understand, I'll be confident myself, but to say that, I got under some team skin. And now how strong the West has been and all the picks that they got, like as far as the trades and acquired over the trade deadline. And it definitely don't look good for Dylan Brooks neither, man, because they're starting to be one of those teams that people loved, and now they're a team people love to hate now.
I'm trying to figure out what made them make the trade with LA like they did. I mean, because right now you got Luke Kennard on that squad. I do believe also you have Reggie Jackson on that squad. And I'm not quite sure where they fit in with the Grizzlies.
I don't either, man. It's like for the most part they had a starting lineup, but I don't really see them really coming in off the bench or them being a bench heavy team like that. Maybe they'll probably use them a little bit more when it comes to like in the playoffs, but for now, I don't really see them using them like that. Because I feel like they definitely could use their services a lot more than what they have been, which they haven't.
Ja Rule needs to be worried about staying in the league, let alone worried about the playoffs. Well, that's a whole nother story. Some of the outside noise that's going on with Ja Morant and what have you.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like I said, usually I don't like to get into stuff like that, but just in terms of what they're looking at, I think the key for them in the playoffs is not Ja, not even Dylan Brooks. I think it is the defensive player on that squad, which is Mr. Jackson Jr., who's definitely been stepping his game up the last couple of weeks, at least defensively. And then of course there was that poster dunk that he had a couple nights ago. That was kind of impressive.
I think too that they need to focus on getting Bangs a little bit more implemented into their game plan because everybody's so focused on Dylan Brooks, but Bane's been a huge part of them in like the last, last few playoff runs that they had, and I don't think that he get the credit that he deserves.
I would agree with that, most definitely. Okay, Sacramento, amazingly in the 3rd spot in the West. First of all, let us give some respect to the man who has basically been a great coach wherever he has been, and should most definitely be the coach of the year over there for Sacramento Kings. Basically, since they took him from the Golden State Warriors and put him as head coach of that team, he is doing an outstanding job with them. And I'm surprised they are 36-25 at this point. Definitely though, would be surprised if they make it past the first round. Should I be thinking that?
I definitely can see them going past the first round, man. Their chemistry and good as they've been playing too. At first, I didn't think that it was going to work with having Barnes over there. I just thought that that was like okay. Golden State wanted to get rid of him, and they just put him on got him off of their roster to make room. And I was like, well, damn, I didn't like the way they did Harrison Barnes at first. I thought he was actually a pretty good player. But now he's making a difference over there as one of the veteran leaders, and the young guys really step up over there, man. They look pretty good, and they're in shape to go as deep as that team can go. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing them go like to the second round, but I definitely believe they'll be good enough to make it past the first round.
Okay, well, I definitely don't see them ended up in third. Reason being is because right behind them is Phoenix, and I definitely see Phoenix and perhaps even Golden State at number 5 passing them up. But like I said, just for them making the playoffs is good. Because Sacramento ain't been quite so good since the Weber white chocolate days.
Yeah, because
Aquaman, basically Steven Adams for the Grizzlies, as I believe he's referring to. He definitely will be a factor in the playoffs as he usually is, but I don't think it's enough of one to get Grizzlies past basically semifinals.
yeah,
But
I don't know how far to go.
I definitely say the playoffs in terms of the seeding at this point definitely depends on what Phoenix and Golden State are going to do in these next month or two. What do you say, Hugh?
Yeah, because Phoenix, just to have KD is going to be a boost. Because that's going to have my man's Andre Ayton being able to get spoon fed now. He's definitely going to love that. He's already been getting spoon fed with Paul, but I think that when he's not getting the ball enough, and even if he's not scoring, if he's not involved with like the offense, most times he'll lose or he have no means to play. He'll be distracted. But I definitely think that with KD, that can definitely help them boost and go up to number 3. Golden State right now, man, I'm not really sure, man. That's a choppy team right now. They'll play good one minute and then they'll look, mediocre the next. And they was looking that way even with Steph Curry. So I'm not really sure about where they'll be at right now. But it doesn't matter their seeding because I feel like with a healthy team in the playoffs, they'll be pretty good to look at too. I just feel like it depends on how healthy Steph could be because he's starting to become one of those AD type players too, man. It's like we always make fun of him and other players who's hurt, but then we got to look at Steph is just about he borderline in that glass conversation himself now because he can't consistently stay healthy.
Bottom line is I won't even speak on Golden State till Steph is back and we see what he got going. In terms of Phoenix, everybody seems to be real hyped on them because of Durant. I'm not so sure. I say the jury's out. It's definitely going to be a key keeping Aiden involved. If you basically get it to where suddenly he's not a factor because you're not getting him the ball enough, I think that's going to hurt them more than help them. We got Meach checking in, the pre-birthday boy himself. Apparently he missed the earlier part of the show when we talked about him, but yeah, we did mention your birthday is coming up tomorrow, sir. Hey there, folks. What's T? Checking in with you too. Have you two been keeping up with the G League basketball teams? The season's coming to a close soon, and we will be in the playoffs. As you know, Meach is down there in Georgia, and he is definitely keeping up with the G League as one of the affiliates of the team that he often checks out over there in the College Park. And no, I haven't been keeping up with it greatly, Hugh, but I am aware that the G League playoffs is going to start soon. And we definitely will keep a better eye on that so we can discuss that. We like to talk about what you guys are talking about as always. The WNBA season does start in May 10th, I believe it is. And before that, Meet, you might want to keep an eye on the WNBA draft, which is going to be April. No, actually, I think April 10th is the draft. The start of the season is, I believe, May 12th for the WNBA. But yeah, we definitely, of course, I keep my eye on that. We are big women's basketball fans here. And by the way, it's my birthday season. Birthday is March the 4th, which is tomorrow, as we mentioned earlier. and you will be 53. I was correct on that because you are a few months older than myself. Damn it, I missed the combine. Yeah, that you did. We know you are definitely a fan of the combine, perhaps for some of the reasons we are, and definitely for some of the reasons that are your own. But yeah, you did miss it. But I do believe if you go on the YouTube, you'll be able to catch some of the highlights, Meech. So you'll be able to check out some of it that way. I'm sure you will find some of those things to your pleasing. But yeah, definitely glad you are checking in, big bro. And definitely have a great birthday. I don't know what you got planned for the actual day tomorrow, but whatever it is, have a wonderful time. Be happy that you are not home, because right now it is snowing cats and dogs and sounding and looking real bad out there. So go ahead and be in Georgia and keep it warm, my bro. Any comments, you?
Yeah, first and foremost, happy birthday, man. Hope you have a good day out there, man. Just enjoy and just man, 53. Yeah, you have fun, man. Don't drink too much though. And the combine, yeah, man. If you got NFL Network or YouTube, man, you can see the majority of what's going on. I definitely been checking out just a little bit of it, man. Looking at some of the 40s, seeing my man Sauce on there for a minute and kind of briefly checked in for like a good 15 minutes. I usually don't really check on it as much no more, and it's not as important to me like it used to be because I think after COVID, once they started putting things like where none of the players was really doing the combine and most of them was doing their pro days, that's what I started focusing more on too. And now that they're playing those on the NFL, that's what I've been watching as of late when the guys do their pro days.
Absolutely. You got Young Pride wishing you a happy birthday as well, Big Meech. Going back to our playoff talk, we pretty much discussed about the Mavs. If they get past the first round, actually, I'd be surprised. I just don't think the chemistry is sufficient enough to get them beyond that in the playoffs. And then, of course, anything after number 6 is part of the playing game in the playoffs now, as it's set up in the NBA. So, out of these 4 teams, Meech, you got the Clippers, Minnesota, Utah, New Orleans. Do you see any of them getting to the semifinals, let alone to the finals?
To the finals? No.
No. What about the semifinals? You see any of those teams? Again, it's the Clippers, the Timberwolves, Utah, and New Orleans.
Maybe New Orleans going to the next round, but that's the only team I really see.
And I don't see that happening if they're not fully healthy. So if they don't get Zion back and he is healthy, I say they make it as far as that. Of course, you got the Lakers and Portland on the outside looking in. They're about a game or so out of the play-in grounds, based on the fact that we got LeBron hurt for the next 3 weeks, which is basically the half of the season. I'm not liking the Lakers' chances at this point, and I wouldn't count out Portland at this point for making the playoffs because hey, the way Dame Dollar been playing. Speaking of people scoring in the 40s. You got Dame that has done it several times this season, and then of course it was that magnificent game he had last Sunday where he hit him with the 71.
Yeah, that was a huge game, man, because I think that he could have scored more. If you scored 41 and a half, and it was a sports, I think a sports announcer or analyst, they were saying that as easily as those two guys made it look to get to 71, especially when Dame Dollar was at 41 at the half, he said, man, this is probably going to be the first time, if not this year soon, that we'll see a person get close to scoring 100 points.
I think at some point people at least going to have a night where they say, Buckman, I'm at least going to track Kobe. Kobe having the second most points ever in the game. I figured they at least try that 81. And I think that night he could have had the 81. It wasn't just the fact that he was scoring it was the ease in which he was scoring oftentimes. I mean, his 3-point shot that night and just in general is just effort. I mean, when you look at all the people that like to shoot outside of the outside range, I think his shot and of course the magnificent Steph Curry is probably the two players in the league that basically when they shoot it, you think it's going in no matter where they shoot it from.
Yeah, he got that range and he ain't afraid, man. When he went out there, it just looked like everything he shot, man. It was like he looked at it and it looked like the basket was too big and he couldn't miss anything. So it was really a good performance and how well he played too. And it wasn't like he scored 71 points like shooting regular threes and like perimeter baskets, man. This dude was shooting deep, like half court damn near, and he was making stuff like that look easy. So yeah, man, I think that he's dangerous, man, and I wouldn't be surprised if he could get close to 80. And I'm interested to see what's gonna happen. Like I said, it might not happen this year, possibly, but I know eventually soon it's gonna be somebody like you said, at least get to that Kobe Bryant score.
Right. And then, like I said, I think that'll make a real interesting playoff if you get Denver and Portland in that first round. That might be an upset even. So there's that. Going to the East right quick. Basically, I'm looking at it. I say we skim past New York, Brooklyn, Miami, Atlanta, Toronto, and Washington. That's basically in that lower tier of playoff teams. Unless there's a team in there that you see is going to make it to the finals. I don't. I really don't. I think at this point in the East, we're looking at Milwaukee, Boston, and Philly. And one of those three teams will be in the finals. Do you agree? You disagree?
I wouldn't be surprised with that because that's how it's basically looking like right now in the East. I'd be surprised if anybody else would be able to creep in that or go close to like the conference finals.
Right. And I don't know what happened, but remember at one point Indiana was deep in the midst of the playoffs. Now they on the outside looking in. I'm not quite sure. Look, I haven't been keeping up with the Pacers lately, but apparently they're on a downward spiral of sorts. They are at number 12 right now. And Chicago is like right about there. I can see them possibly overtaking Washington or Toronto and getting in the playoff hunt, but I don't see them getting past the first round.
I wouldn't be surprised, man. What I was surprised with, and I wasn't really paying it no mind at first when Dame did what he did. The only other players that have more games, 60-point games in him, was Wilt Chamberlain, who had 32, and Kobe Bryant had 6. He passed Michael Jordan because him and Michael Jordan had 4 games with about 60 points, and now he's in 5th alone. So I definitely feel like eventually he will pass Kobe. Will I'm not sure yet, man.
I mean, understand what you just said. Repeat that again as to who had the most 60-point games in NBA history.
Wilt Chamberlain was 32.
And then the next person had how many?
6.
This is why people do not give Wilt Chamberlain enough credit for what he accomplished in the league. Granted, there was not as many teams and what have you at the time, but when you basically set records that 50 and 60 years later just seem like impossible to pass, that being one of them, that just lets you know just how great a player one Wilt Chamberlain was. And when you talk about the very, very best of the best, that name don't come up as often as it should.
Agree. I absolutely agree. Because
So,
nobody
yeah,
ever beat the points yet.
right. That being said, are we ready to talk a little college basketball right now?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready, man. Over the weekend, I was just really excited because there was a lot of buzzer beaters, man. And out of 4, it was way more than what I'm saying, but the 4 games that I'm talking about were, Division One games. But the Desmond Cambridge game, man, when he stunned Arizona, man, that was a rivalry game, man. When he hit that 60-foot half-court shot to beat number 7 Arizona, what was your take on that?
I'm thinking it's not so much about that individual, him himself, just the fact that it appears more players in general are practicing longer shots. I think we definitely have one Steph Curry to thank for that because basically when he started introducing, okay, the range is when I get in the building range. Everybody's starting to do that. When you look at a lot of the buzzer beaters that you're seeing nightly on SportsCenter and whatnot, these are not 3-point shots. These are like half-court shots, 3/4 feeds, and what have you. I go back to last week where there was a couple games in the NBA where basically players shot from beyond half-court range and made them. They just didn't count. Particularly that game with Philadelphia.
Yeah, with Joel Embiid.
And Tatum hit the last shot, but you basically had Joel Embiid hit that shot from 3/4 lane, and he hit it with ease. It was all net. It didn't count, but it was still impressive. And like I said, you're starting to see more and more of that, not just in the NBA, but in college as well. I think it's a shot that people actually practice now. So you're going to start to see a lot more buzzer beaters on that level, just like we did last week.
One of the games that was exciting to me, and it reminded me of the college version of the Sacramento and the Clippers game, was the Florida State versus Miami game. It was so crazy at the end, man. But what surprised me was Miami, man. The lack of defense. They had Florida State. They was beating them by 23. And then at the last minute, it was like they scored. FSU scored. Miami scored and thought that they won the game, and that's when they hit the three to win the game. And Matthew Cleveland had the buzzer beater. I thought, like, man, that was a really interesting game because I kind of looked in at it at first, was like, man, this is a crazy game. And how they was playing was the same, man, just run and gun. And it was like pretty much the momentum was on Miami. But to be up 23 and to lose the game like that, I was really surprised.
All right. If I was a coach, I would be fired because I would bench anybody taking unforced extra long 3-pointers, regardless of the player's status. Basically, you think along the lines of people like a Coach Oriema or the coach at Stanford. I forget her name at the moment. But yeah, they basically don't like the fact that so many threes are shot in general. I mean, I think that is part of the discussion we'll have about Coach Oriema in a minute. But yeah, I understand why you say that, Pride, but then you got to understand you have to deal with how the players are playing today. I think you lose the room if you basically are that coach that says, look, I don't like y'all shooting these threes. I'd much rather y'all work on getting into the basket and whatnot. And it makes sense when you have certain teams like, say, a Purdue or even a Michigan where you got a lot of good quality big men to where it makes sense to put it in the post and score that way because most teams won't be able to deal with you. But, you know, these kids nowadays, it's like everybody's shooting a three, even the big men. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think you get that far. I think you would be fired at this point if you was that coach.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one, E, man. And it's fun to see them shoot those shots. Man, it's like I like to see it every now and then. But to shoot those shots, man, it's like when you make it, it's all fun and it's fine and dandy. But when you miss, man, it ain't a good thing, man. And everybody's not Steph Curry and Dame Lillard, man. And it seems like everybody want to shoot those shots, man.
But,
you're going to respect when you make them, but when you miss them, man, it's like you're not going to get that much of the same, energy. And I just feel like that's starting to get carried away from the shooting like that. Yeah, it's fun and it's exciting to see when they make it, but it's starting to get to the point where that's what most people are trying to do now. And they never really worried about just the regular game in general. Everybody want to be the superhero and say, look at me, I can shoot 60-footers and, shoot those type of baskets. A lot of the people who shot them, like when Joel Embiid shot it, it was like at the end of the game. So he tossed that up to win. And the same thing with Paul George, but some people just shoot it relentlessly. And like I said, if you're not, Dame, or if you're not Curry, man, you shouldn't even be trying to take those ill-advised shots.
I mean, it's sad. I mean, like, I'm not saying it's the best basketball, Hugh. It's not my favorite. If you remember some of the discussions we had in the past, I kind of hate when they basically go to the run and gun as threes or nothing. I mean, I didn't see so many players pass up wide open 2-point shots, hell, dunks and stuff even, to pass it back out to the 3-point line to have people shoot threes in the middle of a game where that's not what it is. At that point, you should be concentrating on just scoring, period. But you know, we old school. We got to understand that. We got to understand where the game is going at this point. And the kids, they like to shoot it. Just like in baseball, the kids, they like to hit the homers. They don't like to do the small ball and the stealing of the bases. They rather get their power stroke up.
And that's why I feel like a lot of people this year, even though I feel like it was good basketball, but some of them are starting to, you know, chime out and ain't really as involved as it was before. I feel like, okay, I feel that it's showboating leads to long rebounds and possibly easy transition points for the other teams.
And you're absolutely right about that, Pride. Oftentimes it does lead to that. I mean, it's very few teams that's shooting in the 40s and 50% in terms of 3-pointers. A lot of these teams are right now with going 8 for 30 or some outlandish number like that for 3. And I know it's got to be driving some of the old school coaches in particular crazy. But like I said, that seems to be where the game is going.
Yeah, that's not looking too good for the league right now, though, man. But yeah, you know, everybody want to shoot those crazy shots now.
I mean, it's crazy. If I'm a 7-footer, I would like to take advantage of my size by being in the post and all that. But you know, at certain teams, you'll just be standing there. They ain't gonna pass it to you. You can go ahead and grab them rebounds when we shoot them, but you know, we running a gun.
And just like you said, we're a little more old school, so we're not really digging to shooting those crazy circus shots like that, therefore. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because people will be like, oh man, you know, that's not necessary and they shouldn't do that. But then they look at it like you said, they're bored with baseball because baseball takes, you know, a lot of chess and calculating and just being cerebral in that game. And you see what they did to baseball. Now they changed some of the rules to make it faster because they want to please other fans or people who are not fans, and to get them to be fans. They want it to be more fast paced and more impactful with home runs. So yeah, man, it's like you win some, you lose some in that situation. But yeah, that's just the way the games are going, man. And we're getting a little up in age now, but at the end of the day, that's how some teams execute. I think it's a good thing. Not really, but that, like you said, man, we're seeing the game change all around all games, man, because remember in football, man, they used to really use a fullback, and ain't really no fullback being used like that no more. And just like the centers, man, they don't use centers like they should no more. They just call them hybrid, you know, power forwards, you know.
Yeah, Brad saying great 3-point shooters are only shooting 40% from regulation. The further back, the lower percentage it makes. It just don't make sense. Wish they would move the line back further. I mean, obviously that's going to come in time, Brad. I mean, you got to remember when they first had the 3-point line, it was basically where the college line is right now, and they didn't move it back from that. So I think, you know, just because you have the people that are having a greater propensity to be able to hit it from longer range, they're going to have to move the line back at some point. That's probably going to happen sometime in the next few years.
That's definitely going to happen because if you're shooting from half court, they basically saying they're not pleased with shooting a regular 3-point shot. So, yeah, I believe they're definitely going to get to the point where they're going to make it a little further. But what'd be crazier about it, man, you know, if you really, and I know we a little more old school, but I know the younger heads will probably like to hear that. If you shoot it from deeper, man, they should give you more points, man, rather than the 3-point shot. They'll give them 4.
I do believe at some point that will be put into implementation as well. But speaking of college and 3-point shooting, we want to give a shout out to one Antoine Davis from the University of Detroit Mercy, who basically came about this close to breaking the all-time points record in the NCAA. He actually missed it by 1 3-point shot. Now understand, the record should have a big, gigantic, humongous asterisk by it when you keep in mind the fact that Antoine Davis has taken full advantage of what we now know to be that COVID year of eligibility. So this is actually his 5th year playing in college basketball. So of course, because he played 5 years, he is where he is today, second all-time on the list. But then one, we definitely got to point out that the all-time leader, one Pete Maravich, not only averaged 44 plus points a game in college, but actually set that record in just 3 years during a time where there was no three-point line. So not only is the record his, but he did it by making 2-point shots, which makes it that much more impressive. Any thoughts on that, Hugh?
Just like the Kareem whole situation, and LeBron just beat his record. Kareem wasn't shooting no threes, man. He did all that with 2-point buckets, and to have that type of score that lasted that long without shooting 3-pointers, man, I don't think that man gets as much credit as he deserved. But back to Antoine Davis, man. That was incredible. But like you said, they need to put a little bit more emphasis on it. Like when he played, they should have had that flashing the big lights to let him know what was going on and kind of have him aware of that. So
I promise you, that man knew exactly how many points he needed to break that record and did everything in his power to make it happen. This Youngstown State, which is basically the best team in the Verizon League, was set on not letting him break that record. And I can't be mad at that.
Yeah,
keep in mind, Antoine Davis not only is the number one, basically number 2 scorer in history, but he is the number 1 scorer in the NCAA this season, averaging 28.2 points a game and about 5 made 3-pointers per game.
I look at it like when it comes to him and that record, I'm just glad, like you said, that the other team basically didn't lay down and let that just happen freely like that too. That's why I respected OKC, because regardless of LeBron getting that record, they wasn't trying to let that man get that record. And even though he got that record, it didn't matter because they still lost, and they was basically getting blew out at first before they made the little run at the end. And that's what I think upset Anthony Davis at first, because, they took the time to acknowledge the record and all. And I know he was fine with that, but they were losing the game and he wanted to get back to the game in hand. And regardless of him getting that record, OKC was like, yeah, you won the battle, but you didn't win the war. And that was an important game too, because they would have been closer to getting to the higher rankings versus being in like those playing games.
I mean, that being said, speaking of Anthony Davis, this is your time, sir. With LeBron out for basically most of the rest of the season, if you want to prove you are that guy, particularly moving forward in the future of the Lakers, it is up to you now to lead that Lakers squad to victories that will get you in the playoffs. At this point, I look at it like this, particularly from a Laker ownership and management standpoint. If I don't get like premium Anthony Davis these next few weeks and we don't make the playoffs, I am seriously considering trading that man in the offseason. I have to. What's your thoughts on that, Hugh?
I definitely feel like he should be traded regardless, because I don't think that he's going to stay healthy enough to actually have them move forward to winning another championship. And a lot of people put an asterisk on that championship due to the fact that it was in a COVID year. And I still feel like right now that Anthony Davis is a good player, but when is he ever going to be consistently healthy? So, I would have definitely be thinking, hell, I would have probably thought about that last year, but let alone this year. I just feel like I just don't know, man. I don't feel like what they wanted to accomplish was something they accomplished, because when you look at it now and look how good the Knicks are with Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, and you're seeing how well the Pelicans recovered from him being traded. And I just don't really feel like, they won a championship, so that justify all means. But at the end of the day, it's like they won one championship, and there's a possibility that they might be out the playoffs back-to-back years. So, at the end of the day, that one championship is justified, but then, not making the playoffs would be a travesty for that team. Definitely what they were trying to achieve.
Absolutely. And, of course, the league is definitely pulling for them because basically the NBA is definitely better when the Knicks and the Lakers and the Celtics, basically all the big market teams, are involved in playoff runs or what have you. That's just good for the numbers in general. But going back to the college thing, at this point we are in the midst of all the college tournaments and what have you, and soon we'll be talking about brackets and March Madness in full effect. One, are you surprised that it doesn't seem to be marketed as much this week, tournament weekend?
Not really, because unfortunately, a lot of other stuff is going on too around this time. Like for instance, the hot stove was going on, man. You know, it kind of quieted down, but some of the stuff picked up, like Manny Machado getting an 11-year, $350 million deal with, you know, now he's in there with a no trade clause, and, you know, he can't opt out. So that happened kind of under the radar. But then you're seeing stuff with like free agency and football, and then just a lot of things that's been going on. And things are getting really hot in other places. But I just am really surprised, though, because when I looked the other day on TV and I was looking at one of the games, I was looking at LSU versus Mississippi State. And it was a pretty good game. And then I was like, oh, damn, you know, so whoever won that game was going to, you know, be like getting closer to winning in that, you know, tournament, you know, the SEC. And I said, well, damn, when did this start going on? And when did they even start? And I had no idea until I started looking in at more of the games and seeing that it was the championship weeks. Because, you know, you got the championships and then you get the seedings and then you go to March Madness. But yeah, man, they haven't really been advertising it as much as they should, man. It's shame on ESPN because damn, you know, them, CBS, and all the other stations did show.
I mean, all of them. But what I will say is that basically, as we get in the tournament time, you know how that usually plays out. At least in the last decade or so. In the end, you end up with the 4 teams in the Final Four. Usually, 2 of those 4 teams are teams that's been ranked in the top 15, and 2 of them are teams that either wasn't ranked at all or basically wasn't even on the radar of being ranked. Because a lot of Cinderellas didn't pass through these last several years. When you think the St. Joseph's and teams of that ilk.
Well, VCU and with Shaka Smart, well, you know, Shaka Smart, hell, Shaka Smart made a lot of money off of some of that, you know, VCU, you know, because we like Virginia Commonwealth. Who's this? So yeah, right. It's like I would
say that at least as far as the men's tournament goes. The women's tournament, another story. We'll get to that in a minute. But basically, when all is said and done, usually it's a team in the top 15 that ends up winning the tournament. So that being said, I have written down the top 15 teams in college basketball at the moment. We'll briefly go through whether or not you think this is the team that's going to pull it off. Of course, the number 1 team in the country right now is Houston, who is at 7-2. Do you think they make it to the Final Four? Do you think they win it all?
I think that they might make it to the Elite 8, but I just don't trust them, man, because if you're not those Kentucky, North Carolinas, and teams that we're so used to seeing there, I'm not really trusting them boys. I'm going to say as far I might be wrong, E, but I'm going to say the farthest I know right now them going is the Elite 8. I think they will get surprised by another team.
I agree with you on them. Elite 8. Okay, Alabama's number 2. Do you think they go to the Final Four?
It's a possibility, because they got a lot more experience and they got a lot of good guys on that team. It's a possibility they can make the Final Four. I'm going to say just because experience alone.
Bottom line, if for whatever reason that legal stuff catch up with Brandon Miller, they don't make it. But if everything is everything, I can see them making the Final Four and turn them winning it all. I give it about 25-30%. Okay, KU is at number 3, and of course they are the reigning national champions. Do you see them going back? Do you see them repeat?
I can see them going to the Final Four, but I don't believe they'll repeat.
I think they make it as far as the championship game myself. I think it's in the realm of possibility they can repeat. I've seen them play a few games. They still a very strong squad. A lot of people from that championship team still on that squad. So I don't see why not. UCLA is ranked number 4. Do you see them making it to the Final Four?
Yep.
I do not. Just because I feel like the Pac-12 is just not as strong a conference as some of these other conferences, at least on the men's side. Because basically it's them, as USC is kind of around in there. I believe it's another school that's close to that top 25 or in that top 25. I want to say it's Arizona, but I just don't think they get a lot of good competition overall in the Pac-12 when you look further down to the second and third tiers. Purdue is ranked number 5. Do you think they'll make it to the Final Four?
I'd rather have Purdue over UCLA if you had to choose.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised they get upset after the Sweet 16. To be honest, they just been inconsistent. I mean, bottom line is, yeah, they got one of the best big men in the country, and they got some decent guard play, but I'm just not liking that bench for Purdue. So if they get into foul trouble, I think they're very vulnerable. Marquette is at number 6. I don't think they get past the Sweet 16. Baylor's at number 7. What you think about them?
Baylor, they could be one that surprise people, man, because they did well last year, and I think that, and they not so long ago had the championship. You know, it was the year before Kansas. So yeah, I definitely can see them making noise right now. Before we move on, I just seen some news right now that I wanted to share with you. The leak came out on what the Chicago Bears want to give up the number 1 spot in the draft.
All right, this could be interesting. What you got?
And they looking to receive a 2023 second round pick plus the first round pick in 2024 and 2025. If they're going to swap, they'll swap with the team, and the team must be currently a team outside the top 5.
Outside the top 5. That's interesting. So I believe that puts the Colts out, correct? And that definitely puts the Texans out. Interesting.
What I think could be interesting about it too is I just think that that's just per se right now what they're saying. But I think that they want to swap picks, but then it's crazy too. They're saying outside the top 5. So damn, y'all don't even want to pick inside the top 5.
And that would indicate to me that they're thinking on rebuilding on a different level, which makes
a lot more players.
I mean, understand that it's been said that the Lions are considering trading a pick, which I believe is number 6. And I wouldn't be mad if they did that, especially considering that they're probably not going to pick a quarterback with it. I say if you are able to get some good draft capital, why not?
That's kind of funny too, because we said that last year, and if they had draft capital, just was staying put in what they had. But I feel like if they did keep their picks, I've seen on the Walters Football Report, if anybody's interested in checking out the draft prospects and how they have them ranked in that order, man, hell, they even started on the 2024 people in the draft. But they have us getting a hybrid linebacker who could play linebacker, defensive end, Tyrese Wilson from Texas Tech. And I know, the Penn State prospect is Joey Porter Jr.
Which I very much like. I've said that all along. I definitely would like to see him in a Lions uniform.
But I believe out of those 2 picks, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them picks go. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they let that number 6 pick go and probably go for a couple of second rounders or something. That would make sense. And then keep the pick that they have and get the cornerback, because you could still draft somebody like a quarterback in the second, maybe 3rd round or something, and you can still get.
Keep in mind that we do have 2 second round and 2 third round picks in this draft, thanks to that trade with Minnesota for Hockenson. So I definitely would not mind if they traded down, basically keep that second first round pick they got from the Rams, work with those 2 picks, and then grab another second or third round pick for this draft or next draft, and kind of go from there. I think that would be good for the Lions. But I honestly feel like the Bears could get more than what they're asking for. And I think they possibly will. because it might even be a play at this point. Because if they have purposely said we want to trade down further, perhaps that's the coach being informed that okay, this is what we want. But if you want us to be interested in your pick, you want to offer even more than what we asking for. And I think
Yeah.
as a coach, you need to do.
Because right now they playing, they playing with a poker face right now, man. Because they looking at it like, what can you do for me to make me leave this spot right here? And it's so messed up right now because when we look at it, it's like, man, I've heard rumors that when Lovie Smith found out that he wasn't going to stay with that team, he wasn't going to tank. And he went out the way to make sure they won. Because when he went for that 2-point conversion, and he didn't care about messing up their pick. Hell, if you're going to fire me anyway and I know I'm gone, I wouldn't care neither. And that's funny because we wouldn't be talking about that if Texas just tanked that game. But to have Chicago have that right now, I know they want to give Justin Fields a chance because we've seen flashes of good stuff with this kid, man. His running ability and the passing.
I can't help but think about Jalen Hurts when we talk about Justin Fields. But I think he can have that same type of improvement from year 1 to year 2 if the proper people work with him, and more importantly, if you give him more weapons and a better offensive line to work with.
I think he has a little more speed too. I think he got just a little more speed too, man. So I would really be interested to see what they'll do because he have absolutely no talent at receiver, man. My man's Aquaminius St. Brown, and he had Pringle from Kansas City. He ended up getting Claypool as well, Chase Claypool, which is like.
Oh, I wouldn't say he's nothing, but he may be a third or fourth receiver at best.
Well, people said, like Shannon Sharp, man, when you give up on a guy in Pittsburgh, man, that's not good, But I still feel like, yeah, I would definitely trade, and I think they're going to get more than what that rumor or that leak was, and I think that's just balking at the point. And I think that somebody who's going to definitely need a quarterback is going, bring them a king's ransom over there. So I could definitely.
Bottom line, it would be different if we was in a year where we had a quarterback that was just an outstanding pick, like basically going back to a few years ago, and the man that basically is starting to make his worth, one Trevor Lawrence. But I pretty much figured that, Mr. Pride. About the jet time for WWE, another great show, fellas. All right, thank you, Pride. But I think when all is said and done, the Bears should not limit themselves in terms of the picks. I say use whatever you put out there as a starting point and go from there. But getting back to the college basketball right quick, Hugh. The rest of the teams that's in the top 15, I'm about to name off to you. Let me know if you think any of these teams might pull it off. You got Texas, Gonzaga, Kansas State, Tennessee, Virginia, UConn, Iowa, and Iowa. You see any of them winning the national championship?
Who, in the men's or the women?
Men's.
No.
I have to agree. I think Tennessee could make it interesting. I think they might possibly make it to the Final Four, perhaps. But anybody else? No. But right quickly, I would say we're not even discussing the women because I think you would agree, Hugh, that basically it's South Carolina's to lose right quick.
Yeah, you got them. You got Iowa, who's up there too. One of the teams who I feel like who's going to really give them a challenge is Stanford. But it's a couple of good teams over there, man. But it's like pretty much it's really no parity over there. You kind of can see how that's going to end up, though. And then, like you said, it's pretty much South Carolina's to lose, man.
Right, and right now it seems to be some troubles in the waters at UConn. If you saw the last game's press conference, Gino didn't seem too happy with his squad. We'll probably get into that a little bit more around tournament time, but I definitely think the tides is changing over there in UConn, and the creme de la creme might not be coming there as readily as they was these last few years. But we will have that discussion another week. We are going to head out now. So this has been Game Time Audible. I am, of course, one of your hosts, E-Buck. This is Hugh right here. Any final words before we head out, Hugh?
Yeah, man, I appreciate all the love that people been giving, man. I've been pretty busy right now, man. It ain't really like I can do much right now with my back issues. But yeah, for the people who's been chiming in and looking at, Pure to the Game, man, I was just really surprised and the leap that it made. It was like at one point at 179. Now I'm at like 209 as far as the followers. I think a lot of the help has been, I've been putting a lot of stories and different things on the page to get people interested and kind of show highlights from things that went on throughout the day. And that's been really helping boost the page. I just appreciate the love and all the people who's been chiming in and giving their thoughts and basically just putting in their words and, keeping me to the point where I could keep the page fresh. So thank you. And I appreciate all the love and support.
Yep, and of course, we can't leave without saying, free Brit. Oh, that's right. She is free. So happy.
Who you talking about? You talking about free Ben Simmons?
Ben need to free himself. But that's another story for another day. Nonetheless, y'all, we about to head out. Thank y'all for checking us out on this Snowy Friday. Again, y'all be safe and be careful if you have to go out here in these streets the next day or two. If you're here in the D, and we will catch up with y'all next week for another Game Time Audible. Until then, that is Hugh. I am E-Buck, and we is out. So the fingers up, Hugh. You know what to do. Peace.
Y'all have a good one.
Game Time Audible is a Nighthawk Network presentation.